Welcome back! We're going to start talking about letter writing as a follow-up to our lesson from a few weeks ago on letter writing with our template. We're going to go a little bit deeper this week in doing letter writing with an editing checklist and choosing some very specific recipients that we're going to send our letters to. Before we move forward, I want to make sure that you know that on Google Drive, we have a letter writing editing checklist that has been put up there, in addition to another document that lists out the recipients we're going to be writing our letters to. When you're writing these letters now, we're going to ask you to go a little bit further in the process, but first, start writing your letter as a draft. We want you to write your letter as a draft in your composition notebook. Once the letter is done and you've edited it, then transfer it to a piece of paper, a nice piece of paper, notebook paper, beautiful colorful paper, and then you can send that letter. But we want the draft to be in the composition notebook because the composition notebook is going to give you a space to focus on the handwriting and focus on making sure that we have all the things in our checklist. Then, once the draft is done, we're going to write it in a fancy paper using cursive or gold pens or a giant collage that you're going to build and fold up and put into a letter and then send. So, I've gone ahead and I've written, Mr. Jason sometimes says the wrong words. I have written a letter. I've written a letter in the composition notebook to one of our recipients. Some of our recipients are going to be some friends of ours that the Polaris Classroom has made at a local nursing home. And there are some of our friends named Alan and Francis. And so Alan is a big fan of the Cubs. So I decided to write Alan a letter telling him a little bit about myself and then a little bit about some of the things that I enjoy to do. So I wrote a letter and I made sure that on my letter, I went through my checklists. So I'm going to go through my checklist with you here. So my checklist has, let's see, do I have my address? Oh, there it is. I have my address. We're going to check off address. Do I have my name? Yep, in the address, name, home address. Yep, home address, and phone number. I put my phone number in there. Talk to your parents about the phone number. Putting the phone number in the letter is really up to your parents. Your phone number is a way in a letter for someone to often respond with a quick thank you, maybe with a text message or a phone call. But a phone number is a really personal piece of information to give out. So make sure your parents are okay with you sending that to anyone before you give it. If they don't want you sending it, that's plenty fine. You can take that off or just leave it in the draft, but don't put it in the final letter. Okay? Next, I'm going to check to see if I have the date. Oh, I got the date. There it is, right there. I wrote the letter this morning. So we're going to check it off. Recipient address. All right, let's see. I have the recipient's name, check, and the recipient's address. All right. I got the recipient's name and the recipient's address in there. All right, then I have my salutation or greeting. A salutation is the beginning part of that letter where you say, Dear Alan, and it's really just a way to kind of open the statement, open the letter up. So I have my statement, Dear Alan. All right, let's go to my next page. Next should be the body of the letter. All right, the body of the letter is the bulk of it. It's the fun part. It's where you send all the crazy messages and jokes and information about the things you love. So I'm going to check out body of letter, and I'm going to read you my letter. Hello, Alan. My name is Mr. Jason. I'm a Montessori teacher in the Polaris Classroom at the Montessori Academy of Chicago. I heard you are a Cubs fan. Me too. My favorite player is Anthony Rizzo. I can't wait for baseball to come back. One of my favorite things to do is to go to the park and play catch with my friends and family. Every once in a while, there is a Little League baseball game happening at the park when we go. Even if I don't know the players of the teams, I will often just sit down and watch. It's when I feel the most calm, when I don't plan on something, when I don't plan on something fun, but it just happens. Sincerely, Mr. Jason. That sincerely part at the end was the signature. So I'm going to check off signature. There is also an optional part to put at the end of a letter called PS or postscript. And that's like an extra thought after your letter. And so the postscript, we can talk about individually, so definitely reach out to me or do some research on your own and find some really fun postscripts. A postscript is a really fun way to put a goofy joke. Alan, our nursing home friend, loves goofy jokes, so maybe I should put a postscript in there. And the postscript is going to say P.S. Alan, do you know why the crab took all of the candy? Do you know? Because the crab is shellfish. Because the crab is shellfish. Little joke in there for Alan, because he also likes goofy jokes. So I'm going to check off postscript. And then the final part of our editing checklist is making sure that we have correct spelling, correct capitalization, and correct punctuation. So this is where we start to get to using all of the skills that we've been working on all year, from our spelling tests, from our works like comma in a series, working on punctuation, and for capitalization, in which we were working with some of our classification works from the grammar drawers. All of these works all come into play in our letter writing here. And so I have gone through as I was reading my letter, and I saw that I had correct spelling, correct capitalization, and correct punctuation. So my checklist is now complete. I have checked off everything on my checklist, which means I think my letter is ready to transfer over to a new sheet, put into an envelope, write the address. We'll have a follow-up template in the drive that shows you how to make an envelope and put an address on there. Or you could also check in with your parents if you want to send it ahead of time. But taking the letter, transferring it over, and writing it neatly into another sheet of paper, I'll put it in the envelope, and I'm going to send this letter off to Alan so that Alan gets a nice letter so he's not lonely. That is the end of our letter writing and the next step in our letter writing work. Please reach out to me or reach out to Miss Stacy, reach out to Miss Marina with questions on this work. But we want to make sure, the last thing that I say before we're done with this lesson is please also read our recipients document in the Google Drive. It's in the language folder, in the letter writing folder, and then it'll say letter writing recipients. We are trying to use this letter writing work to write some kind letters to people that need kind letters right now in our really crazy and wild world. And we have some friends at the nursing home that are pretty lonely. Their names are Alan and Francis. We also think it'd be really powerful to send some letters to our medical workers and our healthcare workers at hospitals that are working really hard to keep people safe. And maybe even that another option is sending some letters to our police and fire department who are still out there working really hard and making sure that everyone's still safe. And then kind of a final option is our postal workers. So our post office, UPS, FedEx, and a lot of people even have Amazon workers, maybe a letter that you can just hand to them or deliver to the organizations. And we will help your parents find those addresses. But we're trying to think about letters we can send to people that are really helping to keep us all safe and to keep us with the groceries and the products that we need to be safe. So check out that document and give us a holler if you have any questions. Bye!